Hello and welcome back to Southern Sweden Design Day Studio. Today we have another packed program for you, and we're going to kick it off straight away with our first program point, which is Swedish Design Therapy, a session for design lovers with climate anxiety. I'm not going to go into further introductions. I'm going to leave that to Jenny Bergström-Bonmot from the Swedish Institute. Take it away.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you here. So dear guests, dear design lovers, we are here today to have a small therapy session. I'm Jenny Bergström-Bonmot. I work for the Swedish Institute, and for the past 6 years, my organization and a lot of other organizations all over Sweden have been trying to show the world that Swedish designers and Swedish design companies are really at the very forefront when it comes to sustainability and innovation. But at the same time, many of us struggle with the feeling that we can't go on the way we are used to. We can't consume, we can't produce, we can't live as before. Something needs to be done. And I mean, the climate reports are alarming. We need to act now before the window of opportunities is about to close. And these are quite hard facts to live with, and they affect all of us, not least all of you designers here today. So, but this seminar is not about giving us a bad conscience or increase the feeling of doom that we might have. We want to kind of lift the lid and talk about these anxieties instead, and possibly also find ways to act on them. So that is why we have invited you, Frida. You are a climate psychologist, and maybe not the only one, but you are not very many in Sweden. No. And we also have invited an eminent trio of designers with different expertises and different backgrounds. We have Jenny Gretve, who is an architect and a strategic designer. Saif Bakir, who is the founder of a fashion brand called Come On Sweden. And Lisa Hilland, who is a furniture and interior designer. You have been awarded many times for your sustainability work. So we are so happy to have you here. You're all based in Malmö. And you have brought dilemmas that you would like to bring up with Frida today. But before you do that, I would like to ask you, Frida, to tell us a little bit about your practice. Mm-hmm. You are a registered psychologist.
Yes.
And you are also an expert. We have studied human ecology.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Klimatpsykologerna?
Yes, so Klimatpsykologerna is a group of psychologists, all licensed psychologists, but who specialize in the climate, environmental and sustainability issues, bringing in the psychological knowledge into help making or help supporting everything from, or everyone from individuals to larger companies and institutions in making this climate transitions that we need to do, and we need to do it quickly. And what we're sort of bringing to the table is that psychological knowledge about how to make behavioral changes, but also knowledge about how to take care of ourselves and take care of each other as we make this transition, but also how to build up more resilience as we change, but also try and adapt to the consequences of the climate crisis.
Did you have any experience of working with the design field?
No. No, I don't know anything about design, but I do know a lot of things about psychology and therapy. So, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So I think we should just dive into our dilemmas then. Lisa, would you like to go first?
Yes. I just have to say that I have been a bit nervous this morning because this is a topic that I have within me all the time. I think about this a lot, and I have, ever since I started, even in my design education, I was questioning. I mean, is a designer, is that, you know, if you operate as a designer, you operate within consumption, because what I design end up as products, and I always try to help, you know, to help the consumer to make good choices. I mean, I work more artistically with smaller scale production, but also with companies who mass produce. So constantly I try to improve everything I design and all the products I create to be more sustainable, to increase sustainable behavior, etc., etc. But the fact is, when it comes down to it, is that I operate within consumption, because if there wasn't any consumption, I wouldn't have a job. And consumption is something that we connect guilt to. I'm not myself a very good consumer. I don't buy a lot of things. I make a lot of things myself, but I create things for consumption, and this is something that I feel sometimes a bit ashamed of, and I feel guilty. So how can we discuss this, and how can we approach this? It's a difficult issue.
Yeah. Do you recognize this dilemma?
Absolutely, that was my first sort of the biggest dilemma that I've got as well. I wanted to sort of present as well, and I think a lot of designers do. It's the balance between being creative and create at the same time as we're adding to the problem of the more we create, you know, the bigger the problem would be, and how do you balance the passion for what you do, but at the same time you know, be sustainable and have that in mind when you design. I mean, and in my field, when I do fashion, it's not even a product. You know, you can be a product designer and design something really good for the environment. I'm not really actually even contributing in any good way. It feels like it. Sometimes you just go, all I'm creating is more clothes for people to buy, and you know, you've got that guilt feeling, the feeling of like there is already enough of that on the planet, and how do you balance that? You know, what are we supposed to do? Just not work. So that's the anxiety I have.
So there's something about the action that you carry out that triggers a lot of emotional guilt. Do you recognize this as well?
I do, and it's so interesting because I used to be working as a fashion designer, like in the fashion world, but then I took a very conscious decision to move out of that and only work with sustainability. And now I work with like systems changing societies, like really working hard on sustainable solutions. That's what I do every single day as a designer, and still I feel the guilt.
Still you feel the guilt?
Yes, because I also think that we're all privileged. Like we live in a part of the world where we're not affected by the climate change as so many others. So I mean, I do everything I can, and I feel the same.
Still, there's the sense of guilt. So, what do you do when this guilt sort of triggers? How do you usually cope with that?
I always feel better when I act. So I try to be more forceful in all my projects. I try to really, you know, put down the foot and do everything I can, because in some certain occasions I can actually do something. And I'm thinking it's, for example, a lot of it has to do with materials, and when I work with my clients who mass produce, I'm really pushing to, I mean, how can we improve this? What can we take away in terms of materials? How can we improve how we send products? I mean, all the things that surround the production and the logistics, but also what materials you choose, and how. So you try to do something that has so little impact as it possibly can, but also you can build in encouragement of behavior in what you design. So I think that is something really important that is not discussed so much, that we design products that maybe are sustainably produced, but also we can do a lot, to increase awareness and behavior through design.
Yeah. So, and when you do this, which I interpret as trying to be brave, in your work,
Yes.
trying to, as you say, put down the foot, does it alleviate the guilt, or what happens with the guilt?
I still feel guilty. But I think, that, is that me? In the debate, it's, when it's either or, I mean, you hear sometimes that we shouldn't design anything at all. We should just use what we have. So if you scale it down to nothing, then you can do nothing. But if you go in and you try to do something where you can actually influence, then for me that is a better, it makes me feel better.
So it sounds as though it's helping you to sort of change direction a little bit and help you act.
Yes.
But it doesn't make the guilt go away. The guilt is still there, I guess. Yeah. So and let's let's come back to that. But what about the rest of you? What does the guilt make you? How do you try to cope with the guilt?
I think the guilt is always present.
It never goes away in a sense. What I tend to do is list things. Like I list the good things that I do, which I do part of my design when we create, and I go, okay, so this is all the good things that we are doing, sustainable choices, to try to balance the guilt of like that we're actually adding to the problem by producing more garments, and but obviously making good choices in everything that we do, and as much as we're not really the big problem, we are part of the problem. But it's like, how can I, in every aspect, in every part of our design process, how can we implement sustainability in that? Lowers the anxiety, but it's always going to be there, and you always feel that you're not doing enough. And the fact that your core is designing and creating in itself is contributing to the problem. So that's always going to be there, because that's really what we do. I mean, at least what I do,
So that guilt is there, but it also sounds, as much as for Lisa, it helps you act as well. It sort of helps you navigate a little bit.
Yeah, at least I feel like the product that we're putting out is better than the what's out there, or it couldn't. Oh, sorry, thanks. That at least, it's at least it's a better, more cautious choice than others.
And what about you, Jenny? How do you cope with your guilt? Or
I think what you said, like not doing enough. I overwork. I think I work twice as hard as I should, maybe, because I think that if I, back to like I'll do whatever I can to try to sort this out, as if I could solve it myself. But I think that's a mechanism, like to not. The guilt makes me feel bad when I stop working.
And I think that if we think about the function of guilt, or the purpose of guilt, because all our emotions serve a purpose, even the difficult or discomforting emotions serve a purpose, and gives us information in one way or another. So guilt, we talk about climate anxiety, but actually climate anxiety isn't just anxiety. It's a whole wide spectrum of emotions, where guilt is for many people, a present one. And guilt, it gives us information that there's some sort of imbalance here, and I am part of causing this imbalance, and that is why guilt usually wants us to try and even out that imbalance. So I think that's what I'm hearing from all three of you. Like, I'm trying to do better, and if I do better, perhaps I can even this out. Yeah. But and in that sense, I mean, perhaps guilt can be in one way a driving force.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But what I think perhaps that we can talk a little bit about is. What happens when we have this massive, global, complex problem, and we as individuals try to even out this massive imbalance? What happens to us? Is that a sustainable way to go about it? Thinking about what you said, I just work and work and work and work and work, but the work, Yeah. So how do you think about that dealing with that guilt on your own, sort of as compared to dealing with the guilt perhaps more collectively or more together?
I think it would be good if a lot more people felt more guilt. I think that is one of the big problems, actually. I think that as humans, our survival instinct on an individual level is so strong. So we do a lot of things to secure our own survival. And I think fear is also a very strong force. So I think a lot of people with power, they still are maybe on this individual survival instinct level, where I think it would be so great if we could have more like a collective guilt, so that we all act together. Yeah. Maybe guilt is not such a bad thing at all, actually.
I think also what they have been seeing in some research studies is that individual guilt can be quite overwhelming. We don't always know how people, deal with individual guilt, but collective guilt is actually less. It seems to be easier for people to actually act when we feel a more collective guilt than when we feel that it's all on my own shoulders. And when we can feel that, okay, so we as a group here in this privileged part of the world, we're part of the problem, but we also have all this power to do other things or to change direction. So, yeah.
But how do we do that then?
Yeah.
How do we go from individual to collective?
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Oh God, I mean, I sometimes feel that a bit of hopelessness sometimes when I just look at, when I look at the big picture and you see that whatever I as an individual trying to do, but then you look at the bigger problem and you go, oh, this is so big, like it's just, it doesn't matter, our collections is a drop in the ocean compared to the big companies and collectively all of the companies together. You just feel like, at what end? You almost need to sometimes you feel like you want to just, jump ship and go things, exit. But I mean, I feel like the hopelessness is quite sort of.
What do you think would possibly make you feel less like a drop and more as perhaps part of the ocean?
I think it probably needs systematical change, just on a bigger scale, but that's the problem with design or in general and commerce, that it's, at the end of the day there's a money business, and that's what makes sadly the world go round, and as long as there's that need of making more money, more to consume more, that's the drive, then I feel that that's always going to be a hard nut to tackle. But definitely systematical, big change that needs to happen, more legalizations and
do you think that you, or I guess this is a question for all three of you, do you think that you can be a part of that change? Or is that something that is sort of beyond your power?
I would say that's what I'm working with. No, because I am trying to build platforms and I'm trying to invite like everyone. Like in Malmö, for example, there is now a physical platform where we can go with our guilt and kind of collectively talk about it or discuss. But also, I think take action because for me, at least, it helps to feel that you're doing something good and not just talking about it or just sitting with it.
Can you give any examples of action that you take?
We have some radical and slightly mad projects, but we're inviting companies in Malmö to invest 1.5% of their profit to tackle climate change, both locally and globally. So we're just testing things to see if they work or not. But I also recently have started to try to move myself in and out of like spaces. Now I'm going to let myself feel stressed and worried. But you also need to zoom out of that and be like a present parent or a nice friend or like enjoy the beauty in life. I don't know. I'm trying to do that for myself a little bit more than just be stuck in the doomy version of where we're heading.
And do you feel like, you mentioned earlier that you're still feeling the guilt, and you work and work and work to try and alleviate the guilt. But what I'm hearing now is that when you've done this conscious shift also in the way that you work, that there's perhaps another sense of meaningfulness to that, or?
The guilt is always there.
The guilt is there, but here's
that's the bottom line.
I think here's the beautiful thing about our emotions, that they can exist parallel to each other. You know, we can have space for it all. We can feel hope and fear at the same time, and we can feel guilt and all of these other emotions. So, is there something sort of next to the guilt?
Yeah.
Also.
Yes. Yeah.
And what is that?
But I think like with the guilt and fear comes this sense of like, we need to also take care of what is beautiful. So I think I'm trying or moving towards that as well. And in the local setting, like the small things becomes even more important when everything else surrounding us is just scary.
A sense of hope somewhere also.
Yeah,
you have to
have
some
torn on the hope thing, because I also feel that we're getting a bit unactive sometimes with hope.
And sometimes you just have to think about that you are at least doing something within your, like you have to start somewhere, right? And you can't change the world in a day, or you can't, but you can do something within your own little community or your own little world or your own little, and hopefully that would then collide with other people, and that collectively will then eventually change the world. But we need to start somewhere, obviously. And I guess
I feel that we only started this conversation. I'm afraid that we have run out of time.
Already?
It's unbelievable. 30 minutes just flew away. I think we can maybe continue a little bit after the recording stops. And I would like to say that we can take questions to Frida on Instagram for 45 minutes until 12:30. So please check out Swedish Design Movement on Instagram. I want to thank you for being so open, and I hope that we can continue to share anxiety and maybe also share some kind of hope and solutions another time and go deeper into the conversation. And I would really like to thank you, Frida. Thank you so much. I think this will be helpful for us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
It feels like we could continue for
Thank you.
the rest of the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. And I just wanted to tell everybody that thank you. Thank you for this therapy session. I think it was beneficial for everybody. And please join us for the next program point, which is at 12:30. It's called Being a Friendly Rebel, the Past, the Present and the Future, and it's organized by IKEA of Sweden. Join us then. So thanks again.
Tack.
Okay, so I'm going to borrow that for the questions.
Great.
If anybody has any.